Modelling Group at Imperial College London, who's on the line. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Give us an overview, first of all, Professor. So where we are and what direction we seem as a nation to be heading in.
That's a very difficult question to answer right now. We've had 2 or 3 weeks of declining cases, as you know, and admissions to hospitals. That may be petering out. It's too early to say. There's a hint of an uptick in the last few days. But we're in quite a different situation from those European countries you're talking about. We've had very high case numbers, between 30 and 50,000 a day, really for the last 4 months, since the beginning of July. And that has obviously had some downsides. It's also had, paradoxically, an upside of boosting the immunity of the population compared with countries like Germany and the Netherlands and France, which have had much, much lower case numbers and are only now seeing an uptick.
That's interesting. So although we see this uptick, considerable uptick in the case of some European countries, it is not necessarily going to have an impact on us during the winter.
Not necessarily. We don't fully understand the drivers of what's causing the increases in places like Germany, though, where case numbers have gone up very quickly. It may be waning immunity from the vaccines, and they haven't rolled out boosters as quickly as we have. It may be just be going into winter, people more mingling indoors. But we need to keep an eye on it. I mean, we don't understand the epidemiology well enough to be complacent. I mean, it may be a harbinger, as I think the Prime Minister said, of further increases here. But I'm still quite optimistic at the current time, and we have accelerated the rollout of the booster programme. Over 11 million people vaccinated. I think we're going to get data next week showing quite how effective those boosters are. So
yes,
I think
actually that's a crucial question, isn't it? Have you any idea? I mean, as you say, the data is due out next week. Are you getting any early impression of what that data is likely to tell us?
I mean, the data hasn't been published for the UK, but I think it's going to look very like we've seen in places like Israel, where people are very substantially protected after their booster dose, not just from severe disease, and we won't have that data for a while, but even from just getting infected again, mild disease. And that's what we've been missing in the last few months with the Delta variant, with people who've only had 1 or 2 doses.
And that extra protection would then last for, quite a few months. In other words, through the winter. Is that your thinking?
Obviously, we don't know yet, but from the antibody levels people get after their third booster dose, we would expect that protection to continue for several months. Yes, get us through the winter at the very least, maybe even longer.
In that case, do you think, is there a case for rolling out boosters much more widely than they're available at the moment?
I think we're doing better than we were in the over 50s. We still have some way to go, but it will be a decision for the JCVI committee, but I see no reason why we shouldn't be rolling them out to younger age groups once we've got through the priority groups, the over 50s and the clinically very vulnerable.
But do you think it could make a real difference if, for instance, teenagers and young adults were to receive boosters and indeed second doses?
Well, our modelling of a group at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine suggests, yes, it could make quite a big difference to driving down transmission to low levels.
What do you make at the moment, given all that you've just said, and obviously a lot of it is uncertain, you've been very clear about that. People are concerned about the winter. There's a story in one of the papers about office parties not taking place, etc. And obviously in some parts of the UK there are still quite stringent measures in place. How does the winter look?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think, first of all, we are in a very different place from last year. So the vaccination is having a huge effect. If we'd been at this number of cases last year, we would have had 4 times as many hospitalizations, probably 5-10 times as many deaths. So the immunization is protecting us. That said, we could see some significant increases in case numbers going into the winter and under some scenarios. We could also see the reverse, so it is very difficult to predict. I think it's unlikely we'll get a catastrophic, anything close to last year, catastrophic winter wave at this point. We might see increases, slow increases, as we did in October, for instance, but not anything as rapid as we saw last year. So I think we can't be complacent, but at the moment, I don't think we'll be in the situation the Netherlands is coming into at the moment, where they really do need to get on top of rising case numbers through new social distancing. I very much hope we can avoid that in this country.
Professor Neil Ferguson from Imperial College, thank you very much.
Just after 20 to